The College Football Show coming your way on a Thursday. Good to have all of you with us. Appreciate you stopping by here at the Voice of College Football. Got a number of things that we would like to get to today. They involve the Pac-12 and the Mountain West. They involve the College Football Playoff and how that projects toward the future, and also involves all these general managers being hired across college football. Maybe we'll start there. First and foremost, we've got a book to let you know about. Disputed National Champions, a historical reset of the 1990s. The link's in the description section down below. No one on board yet, a handful of folks, but we are going to get to the news of the day. And again, general managers being hired recently at places like USC, Oklahoma, Nebraska. Check out our team channels because we have certainly provided analysis there on those particular hires. Let's go to the latest. Which involves Nebraska hiring Patriots executive Patrick Stewart as their new general manager. Okay, let's find out about one Patrick Stewart. And we've already transitioned to a point where we got to treat these college football teams like NFL teams from a personnel standpoint, roster management, financial roster management. Although there's not a cap, is there? No cap on NIL. Just like there is no cap for these NFL players or professional athletes in regards to their endorsements. Same thing. It's become basically the same thing. Here in 2025, we're going to get to the point where we've got revenue distribution. And then that revenue distribution for the players is going to be supplemented by NIL, just like for NFL players. Their revenue distribution, in a sense, comes through a salary cap. That's their revenue distribution. The NFL obviously has their salary cap for each particular team tied to how much money they generate, and then they can pay the players based on the amount of money that they generate. So it's similar in that sense. And then the players go out and they get endorsements. As Jim tells us, Star Wars, The Next Generation. Did I miss something? Jim, good to see you. All right. Nebraska is hiring New England Director of Personnel Patrick Stewart as the football program's new general manager. Pete Thamel reported. Current Nebraska GM Sean Padden, who oversaw top recruiting classes in this cycle in high school recruiting and in the NCAA transfer portal, will move to a new role of assistant AD for strategic intelligence. Stewart will run the personnel department. I would be curious to know Sean Padden's prior experience, because what we're seeing here is that some of the initial general manager hires by these schools weren't necessarily of the caliber or had the experience to run it like a true GM. And now we see all these connections between college football and the NFL and hiring from the pros. Nebraska 7-6 last year, won a bowl game against Boston College under second-year head coach Matt Rule. Okay, in New England, Stewart's departure comes at a time in which the Patriots are in transition under first-year coach Mike Vrabel. The hiring of Vrabel has had a ripple effect on the front office, and they elevated someone, and the Patriots personnel department is still led by Executive Vice President of Player Personnel Elliot Wolf, who had tapped Stewart as Director of Pro Personnel last year. Stewart graduated from Ohio State, began his professional career in the college ranks with the Buckeyes 2000 to 2004. So that's been a while, 2000. So he's been In football for 25 years, Western Carolina 05, Temple 06, breaking into the NFL with the Patriots in 07. But he was not with the Patriots this entire time. He split time between college and pro scouting over the next 10 years. National scout for the Philadelphia Eagles, before working for the Carolina Panthers as director of player personnel, then VP of player personnel 21-22, returned to the Patriots in 2023. When you look at the career paths, of these people, you will see that we cannot necessarily expect this individual to be the general manager at Nebraska for long. I got to tell you that. Jim's here, Karen's here, Tukey G's here. What is going on? Well, what am I missing? There is something going on with Star Wars, Star Trek. Am I just behind? What's going on? Anyway, so we're going to get, I'm going to have to reach out to some certain people to get them on here and us to discuss this general manager position in college football. I guess, I could talk about it as it relates to the NFL to see if there's really that much difference between what's going on in the NFL. We can talk to that. Know what a general manager does in the NFL, but as it relates to college football, they're becoming very, very similar in that vein for sure. Okay. All right. Star Trek going back how far? Patrick Stewart, an actor on Star Trek. Are we talking about like the original Star Trek? Are we talking about more recent Star Trek? Because if it's the original, then, I never cared for Star Trek growing up. Didn't like it, didn't care for it. Meant nothing to me. I was more into Lost in Space, The Next Generation. Yeah, I wouldn't know about that. But I got to admit, this was probably about 2 or 3 years ago, because of living circumstances, situations that changed. I suddenly caught in on MeTV. And as soon as I did that, I caught on to Star Trek. They showed it I forget when it was, sometime on the weekends. They were showing Star Trek, and it was sandwiched around other stuff that I wanted to watch. So I started watching it. And I have to admit, I got into Star Trek. But Next Generation, I remember when it came out, but did not get into that. The Next Generation was 1987 to 94. Okay, well that was right in my wheelhouse in terms of being glued to a TV, but I did not get into that. All right, back to the college football of the day, and this one. Which is that the Pac-12 and the Mountain West agreed to mediate exit poaching fees suits. So if you're not up to date on this one, of course, the Pac-12 imploded. Boy, was that a time here. We used to talk about that every day. And there was much interest around that. So the Pac-12 imploded. There were only 2 schools out of 12 that remained. That's Washington State and Oregon State. And they are technically the Pac-12 right now. Last football season, the Pac-12 was actually 2 teams, Washington State, Oregon State, although they did not operate like a conference because they only played each other once, and that was it because they didn't really have a conference. But technically, legally, and in all other ways off the field, they still have a conference, the Pac-12. Well, they've gotten an agreement from 5 other schools coming in from the Mountain West Conference to join the Pac-12 starting in 2026, I believe. I don't believe that's going to be this season. That's going to be 2026. Yeah, Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, Utah State, San Diego State. They need 1 more to get to 8. Because there's some kind of stipulation about having at least 8 teams in a conference. So now you've got a buyout situation is what you got, is because these schools are leaving the Mountain West and they have a contract to stay in the Mountain West. And if that contract is broken, then they have to pay a buyout clause. So let's find out the latest there. The Mountain West in the Pac-12, along with Boise State, Colorado State, and Utah State, have agreed to enter mediation related to the ongoing lawsuits related to school exit fees. And so the mediator will decide what's fair. Been through that process once. And a poaching penalty the Mountain West included in a scheduling agreement with the Pac-12. And a poaching penalty. All right. It's a common step that could lead to settlements before the sides take their chances in court. Yep. However, a source told ESPN that as of Wednesday evening, it was an informal agreement. The Mountain West initiated the talks. In September, the Pac-12 filed a lawsuit in federal court challenging the legality of a poaching penalty included in a football scheduling agreement it signed with Mountain West in December of 2023. As part of the agreement, the Mountain West included language that calls for the Pac-12 to pay a fee of $10 million if a school left the Mountain West for the Pac-12, with escalators of $500,000 for each additional school. So we're talking 10 million, 10.5, 11, 11.5, 12. So we're talking roughly about $55 million. 5 schools, Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, Utah State, and San Diego State, announced they were leaving the Mountain West for the Pac-12 in 2026. So yeah, that is going to take hold next football season, 2026, which the Mountain West believes should require a $55 million payout. In December, Colorado State and Utah State filed a separate lawsuit against the Mountain West, seeking to avoid having to pay exit fees that could range from $19 million to $38 million, with Boise State later joining the lawsuit. Neither Fresno State nor San Diego State has challenged the Mountain West exit fees in court. So we've got 2 schools taking up the fight and 2 are not, and 1 also joined the lawsuit. All right, fun stuff there. I would bet that the mediation is going to work. They will not get past mediation. I do not see this going to court. I think the mediation is going to take care of it. I think that will be it. Jim R. stopping by, wondering the typical contract for a college football GM, 4 years, more? Yeah, I'm wondering what they get paid more so than how long these contracts are, because the contracts aren't worth much. When have these contracts ever been worth much in college athletics or in professional athletics? If they want to fire a guy, whatever. Now, once you get into the head coaching level of pay, then there are considerations to be made about whether you want to fire a head coach and have to pay the buyout. That puts the brakes on some of these decisions to fire a head coach. But in regards to firing a GM or anyone else, they're making good money, no doubt about that. They are making really good money, but it's not going to cause a school not to fire a GM if they don't believe he's performing. If he signs a 4-year contract for $10 million, he's making $2.5 million per year. He completes the 2 years. He's got 2 to go, $5 million. They're going to pay that off if they don't want him. Not going to consider that. Okay, well, there we go. If Bimba is correct, I was just throwing out figures, and I must be extremely high here because general managers in the NFL get paid millions. Michigan's GM gets $350,000, I believe. So, yeah, then the contract really means little. Let's see here. Michigan, general manager, salary. Okay. You know what I'm getting. I'm getting what general managers make in the state of, like general managers for various corporations and so forth in the state of Michigan. Uh, they got to be making more than that. $58,000 to $69,000. Really? Let's put at the University of Michigan. Football. Bam! I should have never doubted you, Bimbo. McGee. So Sean McGee's the Michigan GM, $325,000, signed a 3-year contract. $350 in 2024. It will be followed by raises of $10,000 in the following 2 years for salaries of $360 and $370. Nice work. Thank you for that, Bimba. And so, yeah, they're making less money than I thought. I guess I was just relating it to the pay structure of an NFL head coach versus an NFL GM, and then relating that to college football, because I used to be so on top of the NFL. I was a huge NFL fan, but that is no more. So the average NFL head coach, yeah, well, they're all over the place. They're between 3 million and 20 million. There are head coaches in the NFL only making $3 million. The 10 highest paid, you have Andy Reid at 20 million. Sean Payton is at, if I can do the math, it doesn't show his contract. Must be 18 million. Mike Tomlin, 16 million. Jim Harbaugh, 16 million. Sean McVay, 15 million. Kyle Shanahan, 14. Ben Johnson, 13. Kevin O'Connell, 13. John Harbaugh, 12. John Harbaugh has done this in the NFL and makes 12 million a year, and the Chargers hire in his brother at 15 million a year, 16 million a year. Okay. Maybe that's talked about at the family reunions. Liam Cohen, 12 million. Mike McDonald, 9 million. And I guess it goes down to 3 million. Who's the lowest paid? The lowest paid NFL head coaches typically earn around 3 million. Who are they? Matt LaFleur, Green Bay Packers, makes 5 million. Kevin Stefanski, Cleveland Browns. How old is this? This is old. Okay. There it is, Jackson. Disputed National Champions. You'll love it. College football junkies and nerds. The link is in the description section down below. All right. Those were the two things I wanted to hit on today. But in addition, let's get into this. So we produced some videos last week. We looked at 2024, 23, 22, 21. And let's just do it live. I want to look at each of these seasons during the college football playoff era. I want to apply the current proposal, which is basically a mandate by the SEC and the Big Ten, as I understand it, that they will get their way. It's not a proposal like, hey, boys, can you vote on this? It is going to be like, okay, we're giving you fair warning. This is what is going to be implemented. Yes, we're going to negotiate and talk about it and maybe add some nuances to it. But basically, we're going to guarantee the Big Ten and the SEC each get 4 teams in the playoff. Now, this is not apples to apples. I understand that. People have pointed this out. I get it. I know that the Pac-12 has added 4 teams to the Big Ten, and then Oklahoma and Texas were added to the SEC. So it's not completely perfect, but it's interesting because it shows us that there could be seasons in which the Big Ten and the SEC would otherwise not get 4 teams into the playoff. I don't expect it to happen often, but still, there could be some forced teams into the playoff. I find this rather intriguing myself. All right, let's start with 2014. It's a little workshop is basically what this is. Roll up your sleeves. We're doing a workshop here. And so if we get to 2014, and I have way too many tabs open. And Jim, thank you so much for the super chat contribution. We always appreciate those. Do not want anyone to give who is not able to give, but please consider it if you are able. So thank you so much for that. You can always hit the like button and subscribe. Please like and subscribe. (2014). Go to the far right, and that is your, let's get it to 16 because talking about the top 16. There we go. So Alabama, Oregon, Florida State, Ohio State all won conference championships. The Big 12 would have had to have gotten its act together to determine who won between Baylor and TCU. Well, Baylor won the game between the two, so let's call them the Big 12 champions. Then you got TCU, Mississippi State, Michigan State, Ole Miss, Arizona, Kansas State, Georgia Tech, Georgia, UCLA, Arizona State, and Missouri. Those are the teams, just based on the rankings, that would make a 16-team playoff back in 2014. I find it interesting that the worst record in the playoff, there's a lot of 9-3s in the playoff there. You got Ole Miss, Kansas State, Georgia Tech, Georgia, UCLA, Arizona State. And left out of the playoff would have been Clemson, 9-3, just a year before they went to the national championship game, of course. Wisconsin, 10-3, who lost the Big Ten championship game. And Louisville, 9-3. So we're leaving out 3 9-3 or 10-3 teams as it stands right there. However, we've got 5 SEC teams in the field. Bama at 1, Mississippi State at 7, Ole Miss at 9, Georgia at 13, and Missouri at 16. So the SEC's hit its mark of 4 with 5 teams. But the Big Ten only has Ohio State at 4 and Michigan State at 8. That's it. So there would have to be 2 Big Ten teams elevated into the field, and that would be Wisconsin at 18 and Minnesota at 25. Now, if we take the conferences where they stand right now, then the Big Ten would get its total of 4 in, because you got Ohio State, Michigan State, but you also have UCLA at 14, and I'm missing somebody. Oregon, of course, at number 2. But I love looking at this for the reason of who gets left out. How many teams are in this field that don't really have any better resumes than anybody else? And again, look at that glut of 9-3 and 10-3 teams. And with Clemson, you're out. Wisconsin, you're out. Louisville, you're out. That's 2014. 2015. In 2015, and again, folks, if you're joining us every day here at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, we will have some excellent guests here. Why won't that slide over so we can see the ranking? There we go. I have kind of backed off on trying to pursue guests until the end of basketball season. So once we get into spring football, we'll have some great guests here. All right. Because I know you don't want to hear me blab for 2 hours. Let's get to our 1 through 16. On the surface, before anything else is applied, this would be your 16 teams that would have made it in 2015. Clemson, Alabama, Michigan State, Oklahoma, Iowa, Stanford, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Florida State, North Carolina, TCU, Ole Miss, Northwestern. Would love to see Northwestern in a college football playoff. Michigan, Oregon, and Oklahoma State. Okay, only 2 from the SEC. And even if you include Oklahoma, only 3 from the SEC. So somebody would have to be elevated. Those 2 would have been Florida at 19 and LSU at 20. The Big Ten with 5, so they're okay. They got their 5 in. Michigan State, Iowa, Ohio State, Northwestern, Michigan. And then another one with Oregon in the current Big Ten. The ACC with 3, the Big 12 with 3. Now the current Big 12, though, take out Oklahoma, the current Big 12 would only have 2. But I guess that meets the requirement. 2016. And let's see, it is 4:30. We'll throw a link out there and you guys can join us if you would like. Let me do 2016. Bama's the 1 seed, Clemson, Ohio State, Washington, Penn State, Michigan, Oklahoma, Wisconsin, USC, Colorado, Florida State, Oklahoma State, Louisville, Auburn, Western Michigan in the playoff is the group of 5. And West Virginia at 16. Guess I forgot to check in 2015 about a group of 5. That's what I didn't check. Houston would have been elevated into the field. Forgot to check on the group of 5 in 2015. That would have been Houston at number 18. They would have made the field. So we got a group of 5 in Western Michigan. And we got only 2 from the SEC again. Bama at 1 and Auburn at 14. Look at that. So we'd have to go down and grab Florida at 17. And then you've also got LSU, right, at 20. The Big Ten's got 4, the ACC 3, the Big 12 3. And so those are all set. If you care to talk to me, we will post the link in the chat. This is bad podcasting, I know. I apologize for all the dead air. 2017, Clemson, Oklahoma, Georgia at 3, Bama at 4, Ohio State, Wisconsin, Auburn, USC, Penn State, Miami, Washington, UCF, Stanford, Notre Dame, TCU, and Michigan State. Who or what needs to change here? The SEC's only got 3 teams. Georgia, Bama, Auburn. So somebody gets lifted. LSU from 17 on up. Big 10 with 4, ACC with 2, the Big 12 with 2. Do we have our group of 5? Well, at the time we had UCF at 12. So going back to 2017, UCF gets in. They're the 12 seed, they're the group of 5 rep. If you're looking at 2025, then UCF's in the Big 12, and you got to go down and grab someone. That would have been Memphis. (2018) Our final 16 in 2018, Bama, Clemson, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, UCF, Washington, Florida, LSU, Penn State, Washington State, Kentucky, Texas, and West Virginia. There's going to be so many teams in these playoffs to keep track of. What I would love about 2018 is we get to see Kentucky in the playoff. We get to see Washington State in the playoff, UCF in the playoff, West Virginia in the playoff. How about that? So really no issues with the SEC and the Big Ten. The SEC's got 5. The Big Ten's got 3. Okay, the Big Ten would have to gain a spot. Now the new Big Ten would include Washington, so they would get to 4. The old Big Ten, you'd have to drop down to grab Northwestern. That would be phenomenal. Northwestern's number 22 in the country, and they get elevated into the playoff. That would be sweet. What conference only has 1 team in this playoff? The ACC. Clemson's number 2. That's it. So we got to drop down and grab a ACC team to make the playoff. And that would be number 20, Syracuse. Can you imagine that situation? Syracuse is number 20 in the country, and they get elevated into the top 16 just because the ACC needs a second team. The Big 12 is all set with 3, and there we go. That's the deal in 2018. Are you guys riveted? All right, 2019. You had the 3 undefeated teams at the top. LSU, Ohio State, Clemson. Oklahoma makes it. Georgia, Oregon, Baylor, Wisconsin, Florida, Penn State, Utah, Auburn, Alabama, Michigan, Notre Dame, Iowa. Okay. That's in 2019. So the SEC's got 5. The Big Ten's got 5. The ACC only has 1. The only 1 team, Clemson, number 3 in the country in the ACC. That's how bad the ACC was for a few years there, where Clemson just annihilated everyone and nobody else could win games. Look at this. Virginia. You got to go down to Virginia, number 24, to get an ACC team as a second team in the playoff. Do we have a group of 5? Don't see a group of 5. That would be Memphis. So Notre Dame and Iowa would get kicked out in favor of Memphis from the group of 5 and Virginia from the ACC. I don't think I would have been pleased with that in terms of quality of play. Kick out Notre Dame and Iowa, insert Memphis and Virginia. Okay, 2020, and obviously 2020 is going to be kind of screwy because that season was just all screwed up. But this is what we would have. Bama, the 1 seed, Clemson, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, OU, Florida, Cincy, Georgia, Iowa State, Indiana, Coastal Carolina. Would love to see them in the playoff. North Carolina, Northwestern in another playoff. That's 3 playoffs for Northwestern. Iowa and BYU. I'm going to post that on Twitter, I think. Northwestern would have made 3 college football playoffs under the rules proposed by the Big Ten and the SEC. Okay. Well, what do we have here in 2020? We basically have 4 from the SEC, 4 from the Big Ten. So we're all set there. Notre Dame was in the ACC that particular year. So that gives the ACC 3, the Big 12 set with 2. So we don't have to shake anything up. Now, what would have been strange this particular year is Oregon lucked into the Pac-12 title game because Washington couldn't play because they had COVID. So Oregon won the Pac-12 and they were 4-2. We were just happy to have any kind of football that year. That was almost 5 years ago now. Man, that was almost 5 years ago. That's crazy. 2021, I posted a video on this season, but we'll get through it here. Who's in the playoff? Bama, Michigan, Georgia, Cincinnati, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Baylor, Ole Miss, Oklahoma State, Michigan State, Utah, Pitt, BYU, Oregon, Iowa, and Oklahoma. Does anyone get kicked out? Well, we got 3 from the SEC, so we need 4 from the SEC. So you got to go down to Arkansas. At number 21, Arkansas, number 21, gets into the playoff. Now, if we're talking about the current SEC, then you do have 4 because you've got Oklahoma, barely, number 16. The ACC's only got 1 team. That's Pitt, surprisingly, at number 12. That's the only ACC team. So we got to go down and grab Wake to get them into the playoff. Interesting. And then the group of 5, where are they? The group of 5. We don't have a group of 5. Well, at the time, we had Cincinnati. Okay. Cincinnati at 13-0 from the group of 5. If we're looking at today's situation, then we'd have to go down and grab San Diego State at number 24. So as it stands there in 2021, Iowa and Oklahoma would get the boot. And you'd have to insert Arkansas and Wake Forest to get the SEC and the ACC up to their minimum team requirement. 2022, Georgia, Michigan, TCU, Ohio State, Bama, Tennessee, Clemson, Utah, Kansas State makes the playoffs along with USC, Penn State, Washington, Florida State, Oregon State, and Oregon, and Tulane. So this is 2022. So Tulane's the G5 rep. So we got that. And in 2022, we only have 3 from the SEC. Georgia, Bama, Tennessee. Okay. Georgia, Bama, Tennessee. That's it. So we got to get 1 from the SEC. So we got to go down and get LSU at number 17 and lift them up into the top 16. And Purdue, who you're not going to find anywhere in the top 25, would have made the playoff for the Big Ten. An unranked Purdue team would have been in the college football playoff because otherwise the Big Ten only had Michigan at 2, Ohio State 4, and Penn State at 11. Crazy. Number 20, or this would be year number 2023. And anything needs to be adjusted here. Michigan's number 1, Washington 2, Texas, Bama, Florida State, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon's at 8, Mizzou, Penn State, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, LSU, Arizona, Louisville, and Notre Dame. And so the SEC's got enough. The Big Ten needs 1. There's only 3 Big Ten teams in the field, so you got to grab Iowa at 17 to lift them up, and you kick out Notre Dame. The Big 12's got 2. The ACC's got 2, so they're all set. Liberty. You got to run down to number 23 and grab Liberty to rep the group of 5. So Louisville gets kicked out, but no, they don't, because the ACC needs 2, which is Florida State and Louisville. So Arizona, do they get kicked out? Well, this was last year of the Pac-12, so we'll never know. And really, 2024 is the only season we can completely compare apples to apples. And we will do that. So this is 2024 with Oregon at 1. Georgia, Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Tennessee, Indiana, Boise State, SMU, Bama, Arizona State, Miami, Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Clemson make it. Do we have any issues? Conference requirements? Yes. So the SEC's got 6 in the playoff. Wouldn't you love that? 6 SEC teams would have made the playoffs last year in a 16-team field. Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, Bama, Ole Miss, South Carolina. The Big 10 gets 4, the ACC 3. We got an issue with the Big 12. They only have 1 team in. They need 2. So it would be BYU knocking out South Carolina. BYU would have knocked out South Carolina. We got Boise State, so we got the G5. BYU would have knocked out South Carolina. Okay. That's what I got for you, folks. We do appreciate you being here. Final call for anyone on the lines. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Good to see JEH58, Jim's here, Donald, and others. Aaron, Tukey, G. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. And again, hang with me here Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. We are going to be going after some exceptional guests. We will get there. We could get them now, but again, basketball season, and we would like to step outside the network and some of the usual people. We're still going to see some of the old standbys and some of the folks that we have on all the time, but we are going to go beyond that and make this a strong guest-driven show, along with my analysis and calls from all of you. It is a beautiful day here. Hopefully you're enjoying the same. I've already been out for a couple times outside. I think I will make it again. I do have an appointment here in just about a half hour. So thank you for being here at the Voice of College Football. This is the College Football Show. We'll be back on Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Hope you can make it. And you have a great rest of your day. And next up at the Voice of College Football, let's see, on a Thursday night, we got the Michigan call-in show. We got an Ohio State call-in show as well.